I know it's easy to get excited, but let's try not to get too excited, right? Here's a couple things that actually are on the agenda today, and part of what I want to talk about, what I've seen with the anti-Trump movement in the last 6, 7, 8, 9 months, whatever it's been. And it's been this mindset that I find absolutely hilarious, and I have to share it with you, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. The thought is, people I think sit on their couches and they get an idea that he's going to get arrested for something, and all of a sudden you hear the quote over and over and over, and here's a bag of Funyuns to celebrate this quote with. The quote is, Donald J. Trump and his whole family are going to jail. I'm sorry. I can't even, it's hard to even say that and not completely bust out laughing, because the idea of impeachment of Donald Trump, of any of these other things that people want to talk about, automatically because you don't like him, means he's either going to get impeached or he and his whole family are going to go to jail. So, first of all, let me establish this. America is a business, all right? First and foremost, it's a business. If you need proof of that, look at who is the current president, who came into the current presidency without a super PAC, for one. For two, you should also understand that Donald Trump is in the top 5% of earners probably in the United States. So you're talking about a very elitist background of where he comes from. If you don't think they're going to sit there and basically protect him, and every politician's job, by the way, is to get elected. I know that might be hard for some of you to sort of understand, but that is every politician's job, is to get elected, right? That's their initial job when they're campaigning, is to get elected. All that shit they promised, all the things they're going to work for, all these wonderful, great improvements that they're going to make onto this whole system, none of that shit ever comes to fruition. My family immigrated to this country in the mid-'80s, all right? If we came during that time, and even they did 1/10 of what they said they were going to do with creating jobs and all this other sorts of shit that every single person running for office has been saying during that time. If they did even 1/10 of what they said they were going to do, we would be actually, in America, be buying tickets for people to fly over here one way to be able to work for us, because there'd be so much work, it'd be coming out of our nostrils, right? That's really not the way things work. So first of all, any and every cocksucker that you've ever gone and wasted time in line for, to vote for, is essentially somebody that's going to go back into the puppet system, and somebody who is there for themselves. Look at how much these politicians make regardless of what position they're in, and compare that with how much their wealth, their personal wealth, grows. Okay? Now, this is the first president, I believe, that actually got elected without a super PAC before super PACs were a thing. Somebody that did it with their own money. I'm talking about in the more modern age. I mean, I'm not going back in history too far back, because obviously the idea of how we campaign now has significantly been able to change. But all this hatred and all these ideas, and it's so hard to sometimes look at it, and these are some people, I mean, I like to think is being very educated. I have some people that are medical professionals, other people that work as attorneys and other sorts of, and they just buy into this mindset. Somebody like that is always going to be protected. And especially in addition to that, this is the way business works, and this is the way that politics work, okay? Even if there were some level of proof on something, for you to actually think and believe for a moment that, let's say this special prosecutor, this Mueller guy apparently, who for the last 3 or 4 months hasn't been able to find his own dick in his pants, but, you know, let's say he goes through and he finds a couple things, and he goes through it and makes, you know, finds out about some Russian meddling and whatever else, which apparently $100,000, like I said, in an ad will sway anything. Now, I know local businesses, you know, some of them paid $300, $500, $600, $700, $800 to local Facebook ads, and it didn't really generate any revenue. But apparently over there, a country that pays $100,000 into here, that is what is going to you know, sway the election and change things up. Facebook is what lost the last election. That's what we have to look at, right? Facebook. But if you think for a moment that somebody like this Mueller, the special investigator, even if he were to find anything, if you think for a moment that there wouldn't be dirt on him as well, that could be fabricated, made up, thrown at him, and so he, even after doing something like this, would be at risk of everything. And I'm sure there's little plugs along the way, because that's the way that people operate. If you think for a moment that that's not happening, I don't know what planet you're living on, but it's probably, wherever you're at, it's about a 30-minute episode, and it starts with Rod Serling, all right, doing the introduction in the beginning of it. Everybody here is protected. And at the very least, if we look at every politician, and we think to ourselves of how much their wealth grows every year, wouldn't that at the very least be considered insider trading with information that they're privy to? I mean, it's a hell of a thing when you're part of a presidential cabinet that actually starts a war, and then you are part of the businesses of whatever the government then buys to help fight that war, whether it be armament, whether it be homeland security increases. I think it's Cheney actually that owns a huge stake, if it doesn't own the company, that you have to go through right now with the whole body scanners when you actually go through at airports. I think it's him, and I wonder sometimes why they don't have this wonderful technology in Europe and in other places. Because that's the beauty of it. You create the problem, and then you create the solution for it. If you're the bully, and you go to school eventually long enough, the way that we've done it in America, the way that we continually keep doing it, is when some little fat kid keeps going into class every morning getting punched in the nose. Instead of teaching him how to stand up for himself, or how to fight back, or how to outsmart the other individual, what we'll do in America is give him a helmet, essentially, with a face mask, a brace in the front of it. So that hopefully, it's not going to prevent him from getting hit, but hopefully his nose doesn't get as damaged, and maybe the other bully has to, hit him 3, 4, 5 times in order for him to feel good, but it will still end up happening. So yeah, Trump going to jail. Let me make the prediction now, however many years ahead, and let me say this. Not only will he not go to jail, not only will there be another level of mass confusion in the very near future about everything, but in addition to that, he will win by greater numbers and get elected for a second term. That's my prediction to you. Am I going to act any differently during the next election than I did in the last one? No. I've never voted. I will never vote. I don't adhere to any party mentality. So whether you're pro-Trump or anti-Trump really is irrelevant to this conversation. Whether you like Hillary or hate her is irrelevant. Whether you loved Obama or didn't care for Obama is actually grossly irrelevant. What I'm saying is how things in the political spectrum and in the political world work is that this will never come to fruition and never happen. And if all the focus for the 9 months has been, and it's very comical, so I appreciate all of you that share these things, because it does bring a level of joy to my face, right? It's very comical, and thank you for posting those, and I sincerely hope you guys keep doing it. But if your thought is that somebody who had the wherewithal and the ability, and if Russia was involved, let's say it was, if it wasn't even involved, if that was even a possibility, if that was even capable, then you should even be more worried right now than you are. Because that's a different level of wherewithal. To be able to outsmart the greatest companies that arguably in the last 15 years have actually come from the ground up with these, what they call toddler CEOs, which one's Google and the other one's Facebook. To have something that can outsmart both of those, and the United States system, whatever voting system that we've put in place, whatever computer security, all this shit we've put in place, to think that Russia for $100,000 would be able to sway the election like that. If you believe even 5%, 10% of that, right, you should sell all your shit and move over there, because that is a superior intellect and superpower compared to anything we apparently have here. If you don't, I got no sympathy for you.